Hello, and thank you for joining us for the KREM 2 News Week in Review. I'm Cody Proctor. Each weekend, we walk you through the headlines from the past week in the Inland Northwest. Let's get started with one of the biggest news stories of the past few days.
The chaos of July 25th, 2024 is immediately apparent in body camera videos obtained by KREM 2. They're now some of the strongest evidence Shoshone Grigsby has in his lawsuit against the Spokane Police Department. Federal court records show Spokane officers were alerted after a Spokane County transport unit spotted a stolen car, a white Cadillac Escalade with license plate CJF 9999, tied to a murder investigation. Grigsby's attorney, Marcus Sweetser, also dug up dispatches that show police were looking for a suspect we're calling SQ, a middle-aged white man. Except that's not who police detained that day. Shoshone Grigsby, a 6'7" black man, claims officers rammed his car, pulled guns on him and his family, and told him he was suspected of murder. Camera perspectives from numerous officers document the confused situation playing out over several minutes.
996 or 999? The place Charles Frank Adam 9696.
Including the moment officers realized they had the wrong car.
Great.
Grigsby was released within minutes, but his lawsuit claims officers drove away, leaving his family with their damaged car. Video shows officers discussing the misidentification based on a partial view of his license plate.
I don't know what county called out, because they call that exact plate, and I sound like partial. I'm like, well, that's the white Escalade drove. I mean,
it is what it is. It happens.
Yeah.
Our requests for comment were deferred by Spokane's police department to the city attorney. The city declined to comment on pending litigation. KREM 2 was unable to reach the police ombudsman, who was out of town. But in a filed response, attorneys representing SPD denied ramming Grigsby's car was excessive force. The defense admits officers drew loaded guns, but denied they were pointed at Grigsby or his family. But Grigsby's complaint points to these moments. As evidence, guns were drawn on him and his children. As it later turned out, the stolen car suspect, SQ, was not the man police later arrested for the murder. We're not naming him because he hasn't been charged in that case. Charging documents for the actual murder suspect show SQ was a roommate of the victim who drove away in her car before police got there because he had warrants. Grigsby claims he requested payment for his damaged car and an investigation by the police ombudsman. He was told to file a tort claim form, but Sweetser says once that was done, it shut down any internal examination into what happened. Defense attorneys acknowledge Grigsby was told to file a complaint in August and write it is SPD policy to stop internal investigation when that happens. Grigsby would like a jury to hear this case, and the police department is also demanding a jury trial. The first hearing is set for Thursday, October 30th. Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
In November 2019, WSU freshman Sam Martinez died from acute alcohol poisoning. The result, Pullman Police and WSU agreed, of hazing at Alpha Tau Omega.
We, of course, were utterly crushed and shocked. And it took us a long time to even know if we could stand up again, frankly, after such a terrible hit of losing your child.
Sam's mother, Jolene House, says her family hasn't been the same since, but in the months that followed, they pushed state legislators for a change, and in 2022, they passed a new state law, Sam's Law. It requires schools to make hazing incidents public, and anyone that kills or seriously hurts a person in a hazing incident can be charged with a felony. But a lawsuit the family filed against WSU in 2020, 2 years before the law went into effect, argues the university is also to blame, alongside the fraternity, saying hazing was already known to occur at WSU and still does.
Is hazing still going on at Washington State University? Definitely.
House says a Superior Court judge initially rejected her family's case, but in January, a Washington State appeals court ruled a university should bear the responsibility. This was a first of its kind for Washington State. In response, WSU appealed the decision to the state Supreme Court. The High Court heard arguments today, and their ruling will determine if the case goes to trial. WSU attorney Nicholas Ulrich says what fraternity members do at off-campus events like at Alpha Tau Omega is out of their hands.
They're going to have meetings, they're going to have clubs, they're going to meet off campus. This is a private residence where the university does not have any power to go to, observe, or be at.
The family's attorney, Rebecca Rowe, argued previous investigations show the university knew hazing had gone on years before Sam's attendance, and because of this, they should have intervened.
If it was an organized activity, and I use that term loosely, by the fraternity, and they knew, and that it involved hazing and minor pledging, yes, they had the authority to do it anywhere.
House says today's hearing was long overdue, but is relieved the case is now getting the court's attention 5 years after the filing, and they hope to bring the case to a jury.
Sam deserves to have his story heard and to allow others to render a decision on whether he was wronged by the university.
As we go to break, here's a check of your forecast. Welcome back to the KREM 2 News Week in Review. It's been a busy week across the Inland Northwest, and we want to help you catch up on some of the stories you might have missed.
Well, Washington State's Department of Social and Health Services says if the government shutdown continues past October 31st, they won't be able to distribute food benefits like SNAP. That has local food pantries like this one behind me in Spokane Valley worried about a surge in demand when demand in need is already so high.
We're stretched pretty thin without any kind of, temporary crisis.
The parking lot is generally full, according to those who work at Partners in the Northwest in Spokane Valley. Packed with people looking for food, the nonprofit told us it serves up to 16,000 people a month. CEO of Partners in the Northwest, Cal Koblenz, says they need a plan to keep up with demand if people do not get their SNAP benefits for November. The government shutdown is threatening programs like Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
We've already increased 500% since COVID in customers, and so we are at capacity. I mean, the food that comes in flies out.
Koblenz tells me Partners INW are primarily funded by in-kind donations. Now they say they face using the small funding they have to ensure people are not turned away.
Even the fear, I think, of are my benefits going to get, turned off, will force more people into food pantries and food banks.
Second Harvest says they feel this same pressure.
Our job is to get good quality food, most of it Washington grown, and get it out to the people in need.
Eric Williams, a director with Second Harvest, says they supply food for about 250 organizations, like food pantries, school districts, and similar programs.
So a lot of the partners are already calling us, asking us, hey, are you guys expecting more food? We're working like crazy to get more food, and any donations, food donations or money donations that can help us weather this are really appreciated.
Washington State's DSHS office tells me about 930,000 people receive food benefits. Specifically in Spokane County, they say 108,000 people receive food benefits. Those people may soon be looking to local groups like Second Harvest and Partners in the Northwest for help, leading those agencies to increase their food supplies ahead of what may be a significant surge in demand starting in November. Second Harvest and Partners in the Northwest are requesting for non-perishable food donations if federal funding is not restored. I'm reporting in Spokane Valley. Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
This case is one of the more complex collegiate eligibility cases in recent memory. After the NCAA denied Tyon Grant Foster's waiver to play this season, he has now taken legal action against the NCAA. Grant Foster was due to have an injunction hearing in Spokane County Court today. A favorable outcome would have seen Grant Foster become immediately eligible to play. However, at 4 p.m. last night, the NCAA filed a motion to move the case to federal federal court due to Grant Foster's legal team invoking the precedent set by Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia's federal antitrust lawsuit, which ended up striking today's hearing. Now Grant Foster is in limbo once again as the deadline for schools to offer athletic scholarships and financial aid to winter sport athletes is now less than 1 week away. Grant Foster posted this heartbreaking statement on his Instagram story last night, in which he questions why the NCAA is so focused on denying him the ability to play this season. Remember, Grant Foster played 2 years of junior college ball and has played 3 full seasons at the Division I level. He played 1 game at DePaul in 2021 before suffering cardiac arrest and missing 2 full seasons. Obviously, this is an issue causing great concern for this year's Zags.
It's devastating, especially with the news that we heard about what's going on today. I talked to him last night. I saw him in the elevator late last night, and then that's when he had told me, and I gave him a big hug, and I was just like, man, just know that we're with you, and just trying to just stay engaged with him outside of the things that are going on right now. But everybody's behind him, coaches included, the whole university's behind him, and we just hope for a great outcome with this.
We will continue to keep you updated as this is a developing legal matter.
Hello, I'm Cody Proctor. Thank you for joining us here on KREM 2 News. You're watching the Week in Review, where we bring you some of the biggest news stories of the past week.
Well, the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office says that the incident and resignation of Sheriff Holly Lindsay is unfortunate, and that they say that she was a leader in the community. Now, the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office is leading the investigation of this off-duty crash.
She taught me how to interact with the community and be a real leader in the community.
Reports from the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office show they are investigating a hit-and-run crash. They say Sheriff Lindsay hit a fixed object. Reports say this happened on October 21st. By October 22nd, authorities say Sheriff Lindsay submitted a letter of resignation to the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office. KREM 2 News is still waiting on more details about the investigation and the reasoning behind Sheriff Lindsay's sudden resignation. The interim Sheriff Lance Stutzky says what happened was very unfortunate, and although he cannot share the details of the investigation, he says Sheriff Lindsay was an important leader across the community.
She really had a open door policy, so the employees all loved her. You know, even as a sheriff, they could come in and talk to her about all their family problems, and so that's some of the stuff I took from working with her.
Interim Sheriff Stutzky added that he hopes to be appointed by the county commissioners to be full-time sheriff when the time comes. Now I am told by Shoshone County Commissioner Jeff Zimmerman that there will be a meeting tomorrow, Friday, on if they will accept or deny Lindsay's resignation. I'm reporting here in Wallace, Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
The story starts more than 2 years ago when court records show police arrested a Bonners Ferry man on an outstanding bench warrant for unfinished community service hours tied to a DUI charge in 2022. That man, who asked not to show his face for fear of retribution, says he turned himself into police.
And I saw that the best way to take care of that without getting any more charges was to turn myself into the police department. And in doing so, I was assaulted inside the jail.
Those allegations are laid out court records that show former Boundary County Sheriff's Office Detention Sergeant Brian Brown was one of the people in charge of moving him into a holding cell before later moving him to the Kootenai County Jail. Records detail the man and the deputy yelling at each other while he's being put in the cell. Once inside, documents reveal Deputy Brown slammed the inmate's head into the back of a glass window. Then, moments later, Deputy Brown allegedly slammed the man's head into a brick wall, picked up his limp body, and threw him to the other side of the cell.
I had ended up losing consciousness, and I don't recall anything from the time when I called the police until the time that till the next morning when I was transported.
Now, more than 2 years later, the state of Idaho is intending to sue Deputy Bryan for those alleged actions, asking for felony assault charges. The former inmate says he's been contacted to testify on what happened, and investigators are reviewing security camera footage, documents, and statements from fellow law enforcement officials who allegedly saw what happened. He says he doesn't want any other inmates, former or current, to have experienced what he did.
I'm scared for other people that it might happen to. I'm scared that if it's not checked, if there's not a checks and balances put in place, that it can happen to more people. and if it can potentially lead to head trauma or even death if things continue that way.
In the meantime, Boundary County Sheriff Travis Stoley, who took office after the alleged incident, posted to Facebook in support of the state seeking charges. He adds, quote, although multiple deputies brought the concerns forward at the time, a formal criminal investigation or referral was not pursued then. By addressing this now, we're ensuring these matters receive the attention they deserve through a transparent process. In light of that response, the former inmate questions why it took this long to investigate what happened, but he hopes it leads to changes so other inmates don't go through what he did.
I know that dealing with people can be difficult, but sometimes you got to de-escalate a situation in order to come to a better resolution without using violence.
Welcome back. Before we wrap up this edition of the KREM 2 News Week in Review, we want to remind you, you can get the latest newscasts and weather forecasts anytime on KREM 2 Plus. It's free to watch and download for Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. Now, here's one more story before we go.
While Amendment 8201 is a constitutional amendment that would give the Washington State Investment Board permission to invest a portion of the state's long-term care services and supports trust fund, otherwise known as the Washington Cares Fund more broadly.
Amendment 8201 was placed on the ballot by bipartisan supermajority in the last legislative session, with only a handful of people voting against it. For background, a similar ballot measure was voted on back in 2020. However, voters rejected it 54 to 45%. Now, leaders in support of 8201 say this time around is different because Washingtonians are more familiar with the long-term cares program and its benefits.
This amendment and this change is exactly what we need in this moment of uncertainty and rapid rise of costs of healthcare in Washington state.
Justin Gill, the president of the Washington State Nurses Association, says due to federal funding concerns, now is the time to start thinking of different ways to protect the program by expanding these funds for the people who need it.
It's important that people be able to access the essential components of long-term care and home health care that they need. This affects people in every corner of the state. It affects people in various demographics. And so for me, when I look at it, when I see a bipartisan supermajority backing this, I think it really highlights the urgency of the moment.
According to the Washington State Actuary Office, if ballot measure 8201 is approved, investing a portion of the reserves could increase the fund by nearly $192 billion by 2077. With election night less than 2 weeks away, leaders who oppose the measure,
I don't think it's good policy.
Like Representative Joe Schmick, says the risk of investing Washingtonians' money is just too great.
Well, it'd be nice if you got great returns and build that fund up. But again, you're putting money at risk, and especially money that's been entrusted to the state on the taxpayers' behalf. It just needs to be there.
To be clear, funds are already invested in things like bonds and treasury bills, which supporters of 8201 say limits how much the fund can grow. The amendment would then allow professional investors through the State Investment Board to invest a portion of the fund through stocks and other equities, similar to how the state already invests public pension and retirement funds.
This is money for long-term care, and it stays money for long-term care. It is not something that can be utilized for other purposes other than the purposes intended in this amendment.
I worry about the precedent that this would set. If this passes, well, what's to say we don't invest other monies and put other people's money at risk?
Now, I did reach out to the Washington State Investment Board to clarify what % of the reserve fund would be used in these potential investments. They have yet to get back to me. In the newsroom, Christian Garza, KREM 2 News.
Thanks for joining us for the KREM 2 News Week in Review. Be sure to keep it here on KREM 2 for more news throughout the weekend. I'm Cody Proctor. Thanks for watching.